Okay. So SQLite, and particularly we are going to focus on single table query. So we have discussed about relational database model in the last class. So relational database is nothing but arranging all the data in the table format so that it will be easy for retrieval. The main purpose of this data models, everything is for easy retrieval, for quick retrieval, for efficient processing and saving, all those stuff, for efficiently managing the data. Okay, that is the main purpose. So the good thing about the relational database is it can work with multiple tables together. You can perform querying on multiple tables together. Okay, so that is the best thing. But today, in today's class, we are going to start it with single table query. How to make query from single table. That's what we are going to do in today's class. And next week, you will learn how to do querying from multiple tables. Okay, so before doing the a single table query, you can take notes because there are a lot of commands that you have to follow up. So please take notes. So there are multiple database systems for that. We are going to use SQLite in this class. So SQLite is embedded relational database management system. You know what is relational database system, right? It's just tables. Table is nothing but the collection of rows and columns. So SQLite is recently developed. It's the latest database model, which is developed by Richard Heap in 2000. Okay, so it is named as SQLite because it is very light. It just requires 500 kilobyte size to get installed and to process. You just need 500 kilobyte. So that's why it is named as SQLite. But the other side is this is restricted to use more than 2 gigabytes. So that you cannot use if you're going to use SQLite for the database of size more than gigabytes, then you cannot use it. Okay, only for lightweight databases, you can use SQLite. But most of your phone, actually Richard Heap developed it for managing operating systems. Okay, so most of your phone applications, they use SQLite kind of database management system because it does not take much memory space. For example, for your phone log, who called, and when the call information or any kind of your web browser history, all those information needs to be saved in some kind of database, right? But that database does not need to be big enough because it will take much space from your phone. That will reduce your processing power of the phone. So to handle all this database, the phone should not require big databases. So in those kind of mobile applications, particularly SQLite will be useful, right? So other than that, what are the other special thing about the SQLite? It is open source. Most of the SQL is open source. Okay, it is also open source. It is self-contained, serverless. You're going to learn database in your 3000 level course. There is a course, but that you will use server to process the database management system. You will use SQL Server Studio management system to process, which requires server. But this one, you're not going to use any server to process the data because SQLite is serverless database. You can manage the data without any server. It does not require any configuration, complex configuration. Okay, so these are the best thing about the SQLite. So you will enjoy it. So this is the best way to get introduced to a data query, okay, database management system. So SQL is the best way. So you are getting introduced to the database system in its easy level so that eventually you will learn the complex concept in easy way. Okay, let's see what are you going to do in SQL. Like any other SQL commands, I will post this PPT in the folio, so don't worry about that. I will post this PPT folio and the record PPT and the recording in the folio for your reference. So the SQL commands are more like SQLite commands are more like SQL commands. There are little bit differences, but it is more of SQL commands. Mostly the SQL commands are classified into three types: DDL, DML, and DQL. Please note it down. DDL means data definition language. DML means data manipulation language. And DQL means data query language. So it can cover all these three types. So let's see one by one. So first we're going to see the DDL. What is DDL? DDL is data definition language. There are three commands that you're going to, there are three types of work that you're going to do in this category. You're going to create, okay? The create command is used to create a table, also insert the data into the table. Okay, so you're going to create the table and you're going to insert data into the table. That is the first thing. Alter, you can modify the existing database. That, for example, if you have added a last name and that last name is going to be in different, like the spelling is, there is a mistake in the spelling in the database entry and you want to change that, then you will use alter command to change the data. Okay, so also there is update command that you can use, but alter will change, modify the existing database. And drop is the command that used to delete the entire table. Okay, entire table. So if you don't require the table anymore in your database, then you can simply use the drop command to delete it. So these three commands are known as data definition language related commands. So let's move on to the next category, that is data manipulation language. Data manipulation language, in this category, you will have the commands like inserting values, data into the table, updating the data. That means if for example, if you're creating a table for student information that has first name, last name, student ID, and if you want to update some Eagle ID, for example, let's say that you want to add one more column with Eagle ID, then you're going to update the table, right? To do that, you will use update command. And then delete command, it can be used to delete any row. For example, in a course, a student dropped from the course, the database the system, the designer, so developer, he has to remove that record, that particular row of the student from the table. So in that case, they will use the delete command to delete the data. So you will use all these things in practical. So don't worry, just make notes on that. We are going to do everything through practice. Okay, just I'm introducing the concepts. Okay, the last category, that is called data query language. Data query language, it's like querying. This is the main purpose. That is, at the end of the day, what we are going to do with the database. At the end of the day, we are going to retrieve the information. For example, if you want to see how many students are there in this particular course and how many first year students are there in this course, how many second year students are there in the course, how many girls are there in the course, these kind of information, this is called query. Okay, what information that we want to retrieve from the database, that is the use of the database at the end of the day, right? So how to retrieve the information from the database, that query is the term that we will use. By using the query, we will retrieve the information from the database. In SQLite and SQL, the select is the command that we will use to retrieve the data. So note it down. Select is the command that we will use to retrieve the data. We will see the syntax in detail, but right now, just note down the command that is related to this category. Select, and then we will specify where class. That is, you will be saying like, see, select the student where the ID of the student is this. Like that, you will retrieve the data by using the where condition. Okay, so that is data query language. Okay, next we're going to see the SQLite types. Why it is called SQLite types? Because as I told you, there are different types of categories of that use the structured query language, like where, char. There are different types of text, where text. There are different complex data types are there in the actual database, but SQLite is a very simple database. It does not maintain that complex category of data types. You're just going to use these categories. So for example, for Python type none, if you want to specify it in the table, then you have to use null. That is the keyword that you will use. And for Python type integer, int, which is nothing but the whole number, if you want to specify it in SQLite, you will use integer. So you can see all those things are in uppercase. That is because these are keywords. Mostly in SQL, as I told you before, when which things are keyword, to specify, to differentiate the keyword, we will use the uppercase, but it is not a rule which is written in stone. You can just change it. Okay, it doesn't care about that, but it is a general thumb rule that all keywords in database SQL will be specified with the uppercase because that is the thumb rule. Okay, for the Python type float, the equivalent SQLite type. If you want to specify a floating point number, then you have to use the data type real, note it down. And then for string, in Python, if you want to specify string, str will be used. But in SQLite, you have to use text, text. Okay. And then for bytes, I hope you have never used bytes in your, it's very rarely we will use byte data type. But if you want to specify byte in the SQLite, you have to use BLOB. Okay, binary object. Then there are other data types that is related to specify the date, time, year. SQL is very particular about specifying these data types. But if you take the general purpose programming language, we don't have a separate data type to specify the date and time. But database, it's all about time and time hub, like when that data is, time is the important criteria in database, right? So that's why we maintain a separate data type for date and time. So we will see it in detail later on, but there are also some data type that is related to date, time, and year. So these are related to the data types that you're going to use in SQLite. Okay, now fundamental operations. What are the fundamental operations that you're going to perform in SQL? Creating a table, inserting a new data in the table. So that is creating a table and data. So for that, you will use create and insert command, and reading the data. To read the data from the table, as told you, it is nothing but retrieving information from the table. For that, you will use select command. Note it down. And for update the existing data, if you want to modify any data from the table, then you will use update command. Note it down. And then finally, to delete any data from the table, you will use delete command. So these operations are normally referred as CRUD, because create, read, update, delete. So it's called CRUD. Create, read, update, delete. Okay. Now let's start with creating. Okay. So creating database. So the syntax, note down the syntax. This is very important in your notes. Please note it down because database is all about commands. If you know the commands, as I told you, you can have the notes with you in the exam. So please note down these commands. This is really, really important. This is all about, SQL is all about commands. So how you can create a database. Create database. You can see this is in the uppercase. Okay, that means these are keywords. Create database and the database name. Database name, whatever database that you're going to give, create. So SQL is very, very easy language. It has a little more easy than Python. Okay, it's nothing much complicated. So what is the thing? Create database name. That's what you will give to create any database. So in this particular single command, you can create a database. That easy. It's very easy. And then to drop the database, to delete the database, if you want to delete any database, you will use drop command. So drop is the command you will use, database keyword, because you can delete table, you can delete anything. But here you're going to delete database. So if you are going to delete table, then you'll use drop table. Since you're going to delete that database, you're saying drop database and the database name. And then to create the table, what we need. Okay, to create the table, before creating a table, we have to identify these things. What are the columns are going to be there in the table? For example, if you're going to create a table for student, what are the columns that the particular table is going to have? First name of a student, last name of the student, email of the student, ID of the student. If you're going to have 4 columns, then you have to maintain how many columns, okay? That is called attributes. And then identify columns that cannot be null. So if you're going to say that in this student data table, email can be null, but the ID cannot be null. Last name can be null, but the first name cannot be null. So like that, first you have to determine what can be null and what cannot be null. And then you have to also identify, before you create the table, you have to identify, is there any unique key? That means the ID. There may be 2 John in a class, but the 2 Johns should have different student ID, right? So that will be taken as a key, which is called primary key. We will see the key concept later on next week. That you have to find out the unique column, which is going to be unique only for that particular student. That we have to figure it out. That is what called primary key. And then also we have to find out the default value. For example, if we have one more column in that student table, that column is the city, okay, city or campus. Let's say that we have 2 campuses. So all the students are from Armstrong campus. In the sense, we can say in that city, the campus column, all the students are going to have Armstrong by default. So we have to figure it out whether the column values is going to be default, okay, in that particular column. Those kind of stuff that we have to first imagine and make a plan before we create a table. Once we make a plan, then we are going to use the syntax to create a table. So what is the syntax? Create table, table name. And then here, for example, create table student is the table name. And then here we are going to say column names. What are the column names? Name of the student and the data type. As I told you, there are 4 data types. For character, for string, you have to use text, text. For email, it is also going to be text. So string, instead of saying string, you have to use the term text. And ID, which is going to be integer, full number, right? So it is integer. And the ID should not be null. For that, we have to specify not null. And then primary key. Okay, primary key, whether it is the primary key or not. Auto increment is there or not. That means when you add new student, automatically the ID will be increased to 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. Okay. And then whether that column should be unique or not. So these are the things that we have to give in the syntax. But we are going to use SQL Management Studio, that the database server for this, so which has the GUI option to select all this. We will see that in detail. Okay, then note it down. Drop table. Okay, to delete any table, we will use just drop table command. So like drop database, here you will use drop table and the table name. Note down the command. So at the end of the session, we will do the lab practice using all these commands so that this will be very clear to you. And then we are going to see drop table, table name. That's it. Okay. Next, we are going to see how to insert data into the statement. For that, we will use insert into and the table name. And then columns. What are the columns that we are going to create? We have already created a table name, email, ID, right? So in those columns, what are the values that we have to add? This is our first record, first student name. We're going to say the name of the student is John and the email ID and then the student ID. So that we are inserting by using insert into commands. So that is about inserting data into the table. Note it down. We will see, we will insert more data into that later. And the next thing that we are going to do, select statement. Select statement is used to retrieve the group of record. As I told you, it will help us to retrieve the information. So for example, if you want to see all the columns from the table, then we will use this asterisk symbol. Select star from student means just select all the columns from the table student. Okay, and then if you give select star from student where email, that means select all the columns from the table where the email of that particular student is going to be CVL for whatever. So what it will do, it will retrieve the name of the student, ID of the student, and email of the student. That's why it is select star. Star means select all the columns. That is the meaning. Select all the columns. And then we can use order by keyword. Note down the keyword order by. The order by keyword will help us to retrieve the data based on the order. If you say the name as order by, then it will just order it in alphabetical order. Okay. If you say order by email, then the email information based on the email alphabetical order, the table will be retrieved. And if you use the keyword DESC, that is descending order. So all this, instead of ascending order, by default, it is ascending. If you say descending, then everything will be ordered in descending way. Okay. So these are kind of how to select the information by using other combination of other keywords. So next, note it down, update the statement. To update any information, this is the keyword. Note down the keyword, update, table name, set is the keyword. You can see whenever I specify the uppercase, then it is a keyword. Set is the keyword to change some value from some other value. Maybe previously the name of the student is maybe in different spelling. In that case, if you want to update the spelling, then what we will do, update student set name equal to Colleen. So the previous whatever name was that will be updated with this new thing. How we are selecting it? We are selecting where the email of the student is this. To that row, just change the name of the student from whatever is that to this new name. That is update. And then delete, the same thing. To delete a particular record from the table, you will use delete from as the keyword. Delete from the table name where email, or you can just give name or whatever column you can just give and the value, that particular row will be picked and the particular row will be deleted. Shall we do this 4 practices first? Yeah, so we are going to do these 4 practices first. So I'm going to stop the lecture here. We are going to practice it in the database. So go to the DB. If you type DB browser, if you have installed it already, it will be there. Okay, you can open it, or else just install it. It is a very lightweight app, so you can just install it to your system. Okay, if you have already installed it, open the DB browser, browse for SQLite. So first we are going to create the database. So for that, do you see this new database? So just add it. So here, this by just clicking that, there is a GUI command. Normally, you have to give the command like create database and database name. That is the command that will create. But right now, we are using the GUI app that will make it easy for us. So here you have to give the database name. So let's say that the database name is going to be student. Keep it lowercase if you want. Keep everything lowercase. Student. So okay, so I have created a database called student. Okay, so we are inside the database right now. Now we are going to create new table. We're going to create new table. Automatically, the GUI will lead you to the next step. So once you have created a database, the next step is going to be creating table. So we are going to create a table. Okay, so just give the table name. Let's give the table name as student. Okay, so if you click this add command, here, add button, that will help you to select the columns that we are going to have in the table. So we are going to have only 3 columns for this student table. The first column is name of the student. So let's give name. So the name of the student is going to be in integer. going to be in text, text, string, right? So text. So we are going to say it should not be null. So the first column that you see, first option that you see here, it is not null, right? So that will specify if you don't want that column to be null, then you have to specify not null. So that means all the rows that is getting inserted should have some value. Null is not allowed in this column. PK means primary key. So if you want to set any column as primary key, then you have to set that. So for example, let's set the next one as primary key. So we are going to say the ID of the student. ID of the student is going to be primary key. Integer, that is going to be primary key. So we are saying the type is going to be, as I told you, only 5 types are there in supported by SQLite. So if it is the whole number, then we have to select integer. So this is also not going to be null. That should have some value. So we are selecting not null category. You can see automatically the related code is getting displayed, integer data type and not null. And this is going to be the primary key for this particular table. So if it is going to be the primary key, then we have to say it is primary key. Do you see that primary key is just getting added? And then if it is going to be auto incrementation, that means whenever you add new student, automatically the ID is going to get incremented to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For that auto increment, you're just checking that auto increment. And also you're going to say that the student ID should be unique. That means no two row is going to have the same ID. So we are just checking all these 4 constraints here. When I check all these 4 constraints, you can see that all constraints are getting added here. Integer, not null, unique, primary key, and auto increment. All these things are getting added automatically. Okay, now I am going to add one more column. So that column is email. Email. The email is going to be text. And that is it can be null, it can be, that doesn't need to be primary. Okay. So I'm just adding all this. I just created a table with all these constraints. I have just created the table, student table. You can see the student table got created here. Now we are going to add some values to that. For that, execute it. See, if you can see here, execute SQL. Do you see execute SQL? No. No, for email, nothing is checked. For email is going to be only txt. Maybe I'll create it once again. Okay, do you have everything ready? Okay, name, text, integer, not null. Okay, so now we are going to execute. We are going to insert some command, insert some values to that. Okay, so if you recall the code to insert any value, what is the insert into, right? So we have to add that insert into the table name and the column name, and then values is the keyword. Then you are going to add values. So we are going to do that now. So first thing we are going to add is insert into student table. It will pop up. If it pops up, just select it. And then we are going to, what is there in the name, and then email, and then ID. So values, I'm specifying it in the uppercase. That means it is a keyword, and we're going to add the names. So first thing is a text, name is a text. So we're going to add, text means string, right? So you have to give it in quotation, single quotation or double quotation. So name of the student is going to be John. And the email address is going to be John. And at Georgia Southern is big, so I'm just going to just say gsu.edu. And then the ID is going to be 1. Student ID is going to be 1. I'm going to execute this command. Okay. So to execute this command, you have to click it. You have to click run. If you click run, you will see execution finished without any errors. Okay. So that means we have successfully added the table. So let's see what is that, whether we have added it successfully. What is the command to see the data, to retrieve the information? Okay. So if you recall, to retrieve information, you have to use select star from student. So we're going to do that. So select is the command, star from student. Do you see the data that we have inserted that will appear here? Okay, that is the select command. This is how we retrieve the information from the table. Okay, now let's add few more data inside the table so that we can retrieve it and play with that data. So let's add few more data, for few more row. Okay, so we are going to do some more commands. Insert into student table. And we are going to give name, email, and ID. You can copy this time and maybe paste it for the next commands. Values, type it. And then we are going to add some more values. Let's say that Colleen, that's the student name. And then the ID is going to be CVL at gsu.edu. And then the ID is going to be automatically, it will be updated because we have give auto increment. But anyway, I'm just giving it 2. So don't forget to close the quotation. Okay, I'm just going to copy this and paste few more commands. I'm just copying and pasting. I'm going to add one more that row, one more student in the table. So I'm just changing the value to 10. And the email address is going to be ted@gsu.edu. And the student ID is 3. Even if you don't give 3, automatically it will get incremented because we have given auto increment. And the fourth student we are adding. The fourth student name is, let's say, Sally. And then we are giving the email address. It's going to be A1 sal.edu. And the 4th. And then the next student, we're going to give Christy. And then we are saying chr.edu. It is going to be 5. So we are going to execute all these commands. Just give any name. You don't need to give the exact same name and ID. You can give any name and executing it. It says some error. The error is because when you execute it, you need semicolon here. Okay, you need to have semicolon. When you execute multiple commands together, you need to have the semicolon. So it could be the thing. So now I'm executing. Unique constraint not failed. So it could be because do you remember? I have said the student ID should be unique, but now it is not unique, right? So when 2 students has the same ID 4, then it just does not let you to, it is a constraint. Okay. So it does not let you to save it because it it doesn't obey the constraint. So now I'm just giving the.
I think it's because you already have the first one in there in the database that I think that could be why it gives you the error.
No, actually, so you can see when you use the select star from the table command, then you can see all the retrieved information. So we have practiced select command, create command. Shall we practice delete command? Okay, shall we practice delete? So let's create a one more table. To create one more table, we don't need to. So let's say execute table, execute SQL. So here let's create one more table. Saying create table. Table name is going to be student1. Let's say that student1. Execute this command. Before, right? Let's do it in manually. Let's do it manually. So if you do it through coding, you have to give all those things, right? So the name, this is just the table that we're going to delete later on. So I'm just going to create it with one single table. Email. Email, and that is also text. Now let's execute this. So you can see we have created new tables. So you can see we have two tables now. Create table student and the create table student one. So we have two tables. Now we are going to add some data to that table one. Okay. So let's add some data. Insert into the table name. Table name is student one. And we have to give the values. There are only two values, name and email. You can just, to avoid the typo error, you can simply select. And then values is the keyword. And then you're going to add values. So, and then email is going to be jeu@gsu.edu. And then it's going to be one. So only two columns of that. So I'm executing it. You can see when you see this query, then automatically there is no, I can see that there is no error. It got executed automatically. Okay, without any errors. Now we're going to practice the delete command. To use the delete command, what is the command? Drop. So drop, you have to use drop table. And the table name is going to be student one. So we are going to delete the table that we have just created. So student one, just give the table name and execute that command. And you can see execution finished without any error. So just go and execute, verify the database structure. Then you can see you don't see that table anymore. Okay, so that is about creating, and we have seen create table command. We have seen the insert into table command, and then delete drop table command. Now we are going to see how to select particular values. For example, I'm just going to see what is there in the database, in the table. Select star from student. I'm executing, and you can see I have these 4 students, right? So now I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to pick a student whose email address is cvlgsu.edu. How can we do that? We are going to select, retrieve the information of the student whose email address is this one, cvlgsu. So we are going to retrieve this student information. Shall we do that? So let's see how to do that. So select student, select star from student, and what we have to go, where class. So where is the class that will help us, keyword that will help us to see which one we want to retrieve. Where email. The column name is email. So email is going to be gcvl at gsu.edu. So we are giving the condition. Just select the row of a student where the email address of the student is this. Let's execute this. Where has a syntax error?
Mine said it finished without errors.
So cvl at gsu.edu. Okay, let's execute this. So you can see now it pulls it. Do you see? With the if you that is the class on class where class that you give, that should be, there is no record of whatever it is. It doesn't find it, so it just throws some error on. Okay, so this is how you can fill. So you can use it for anything. You can just give where ID is 2 or ID is 1. How can you do that? ID equal to 3. Execute it. Do you see? The ID 3, the third, that one is getting retrieved. So this is how you can use the where class. Where class. Shall we try the order by thing? How to put it in order? Let's try the order by thing. So if I explain, you can use the order by to select the data in ascending or descending order. Let's try that. So since it is a keyword, I'm using uppercase order by email. No, let's sort it by the name. Do you see? It got sorted by name. So if you want to sort it by descending order, then simply you have to add DESC. The keyword says it is in descending order. You can see now it got sorted in descending order. Okay. Now let's see how to update the information. Did you get all those things? Select, order, ascending, descending. So if you got it, let's see the update information. How to update the information? For updating information, we will use update, set, and where. This is the condition. Update, table name, set, column name, where, condition. So let's do that. So for example, we're going to update the colon. The colon spelling, let's say that the colon spelling is going to be COLLIN. So instead it is saying EEN. So if you want to update that information, let's see how to do that. Update student set is the keyword, and the name, that is the column name. SQL is case insensitive. You can give uppercase, lowercase, still it can identify. So name is going to be changed to colon. Where what is the colon? Student ID, where ID is equal to 2. The colon ID is 2. So we are going to change the ID, the student of the ID 2 from whatever name to a new name called colon. So execution finished without errors. How can we check it? Select to check, select star from student. As I told you, it doesn't need to be uppercase or lowercase. Any case, SQL is case insensitive language. Most of the languages are case sensitive languages, but SQL is case insensitive. So you can, did you see that colon spelling got updated? COLIN. Whatever we have given inside the update, we can see the update is getting executed. Okay, that is how the update command will work. Shall we see how to delete a particular row from the table by using delete command? So let's try that. How to delete particular table. For example, there is no the TED student, he is not in the course anymore. Then how can we do that? Delete. Look at the command. Delete from the table, and then where we have to give something to pick that from. I will stick to that thumb rule. Always the keywords are in uppercase for readability. Student, you can just give student uppercase, lowercase, it doesn't matter, but let's stick to the rule. Var class, var, let's pick it by the ID, where the ID is 3. Let's execute it. You can see the execution finished without any errors. That means successfully we have deleted that student from the student table. So let's verify it. Do you see? The student got deleted. That record got deleted from the table. So this is how we have done the all CRUD operations. Create, read, update, delete. So we have done all 4 single query operations in this class. Okay. So next class we are going to see how to do multiple, we can do the querying on multiple tables together. Okay, we will see that in the next class. In this class, you have learned the basic SQLite operations on creating table, updating table, inserting and deleting, all those stuff.